Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and I just got what I believe to be the best Shadow Shiny Pokemon currently available in Pokemon GO, Shadow Shiny Gyarados. Shiny Gyarados is already an incredibly iconic shiny, so the fact that I was able to get lucky enough to get the Shadow Shiny, I am absolutely ecstatic. Now the IVs on it are not the greatest. The IVs are 13 attack, 9 defense, 10 HP, but it does get to 1498 combat power, so I powered it up, Elite TM Aquatail, and today we're taking it to the Catch Cup to see if we can get some wins with it. As far as teammates for Gyarados, I'm very limited in terms of what I can use, so I'm just using Pokemon that I already built this season, which is the new high-rank Corsola and the Tinkaton that I got from Comday. We do pick up a very strong lead in game number 1, Galarian Corsola into Toedscruel. Toedscruel fires off Seed Bomb, there's a save switch into a Volt Switch Fortress, and I'm very happy to see the Fortress here and not on my backline. My backline gets completely eviscerated by Volt Switch Fortress. Fortress farms up a massive amount of energy, but Corsola just absolutely destroys Volt Switch Fortress. There's not really a lot that Fortress can do here. Fortress can't even knock out with the Rock Tomb. I will be able to hang on. Fortress fires off an Earthquake, so they are definitely not running the typical moveset, but now that they revealed the Earthquake, they no longer have the advantage of having a surprise nuke. Now I can just shield up the Tinkaton, look to farm up to 100 energy, and then fire off the Bulldoze. So I do just that. Now I'm only going to be one away from Gigaton Hammer, and Gigaton Hammer will be deadly if they bring back in the Toedscruel. In comes Toedscruel. This is going to guarantee the final shield or pick up the one-hit KO. They give me the shield. In comes Shadow Shiny Gyarados. In the back is going to be a Wigglytuff, and this game is over. Shadow Gyarados just hits for massive damage in neutral matchups. Aquatail lands, Wigglytuff gets crushed. I fire off Aquatail number 2 to win charge attack priority and deny their energy. And now they have a Mud Slapper. They can never farm down Gyarados. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We move to game number 2, picking up a slightly negative lead, Galarian Corsola into Tinkaton. This matchup is very, very close. Tinkaton does win the zeros, but it does win it on very low HP. I decided to stay in and play out this matchup. I feel like there's a couple ways that I could play it. I could look to tank a move and switch into the mirror. I could try and aggressively pivot the Gyarados, but unfortunately the one time that I tried to aggressively pivot the Gyarados, I ended up getting met with a Volt Switch Fortress, and that was pretty catastrophic. My opponent is going to overfarm massively here, so they're exiting with a ton of energy. I'm just going to let the Corsola go. They go for the Bulldoze, and they do get the farm down. This means they do exit with a Gigaton Hammer loaded. I bring in my Tinkaton, and I decide to call a bait. I'm feeling bold. My opponent full sends the Gigaton Hammer, and then sends in a Bug Bite Fortress. Bug Bites will do a lot of damage onto Shadow Gyarados. I farm up and I fire off the Aquatail, although arguably I may have fired off this Aquatail a little bit too soon. I think farming up way more energy and then Aquatailing so I can exit with more residual energy could have been a slightly better play. The good news for me is that my opponent's Tinkaton is very, very low. So they're not going to have a great time trying to get rid of this Gyarados. They're going to have to bring in their final Pokemon, which is a Shadow Araquanid. Araquanid will take a lot of damage even from a -1 Twister. In this matchup, Waterfall is a little bit betraying me. I farm up, I get to the Twister. Oh my goodness, what a catch. They get the triple resisted catch onto Tinkaton. I go for an undercharge and a pivot into my Tinkaton. That sets up a perfect Fairy Wind farm down. And now I exit with a ton of energy to threaten the Shadow Araquanid. Even though Shadow Araquanid does have a resistance to Gigaton Hammer, does anything ever really resist Gigaton Hammer? It's just such an incredibly powerful move. I end up no shielding, calling that they would go for the Bubble Beam bait. My opponent's going to go for Bubble Beam number 2, and I should have a guaranteed win condition by being able to switch out and reset all those debuffs. Now the Gigaton Hammer is back to full power, and that is going to be game losing for my opponent. It is resisted, but it definitely doesn't feel it. Down goes the double Bug Bite team, and we're able to get the win. We see a nice lead in the next match, Corsola into Shadow Fortress, but my opponent save switches into Feraligatr, and I'm completely core broken. I did not think about Feraligatr when it comes to team building because I didn't think anyone had built a Feraligatr this season. Feraligatr's been good for so many seasons. I wasn't even aware that it spawned, to be honest, but there's a Feraligatr here, and this is a big problem. I lose so much health on my Corsola just tanking the Hydro Cannon. I send in the Gyarados, and Gyarados is going to have to go down a shield as well. The good news is, if it's Shadow, it should be on Bug Bite, which means they can't really do a lot of damage into my Gyarados, but in the back, they have a Licky, and that's another Pokemon that I'm triple weak to. This is really bad. I'm at a big team comp disadvantage. I'm going to try and find a way to play my way out, but I'm going to have to make some aggressive reads. I can't really afford to pivot out here because then Corsola could get aligned onto the Licky. So I end up staying in and just letting myself get knocked out by the Body Slam. At this point, I've taken so much damage on Corsola and Tinkaton that I'm just going to get swept by their up energy Fortress. So I try and make the read, predicting the switch in, but my opponent just stays on the field with Licky Licky. I was already very far behind in this game, so I tried to make an aggressive play to get back in it, and unfortunately, it did not end up working out. But if my opponent gets up energy on the Fortress, I've already taken so much damage on the Corsola would just get completely overrun. So I had to try and make the aggressive play, and unfortunately, it doesn't end up working out. Now, I can send back in the Tinkaton, they bring in the Fortress, but because I took the Shadow Ball earlier on the Tinkaton, because I couldn't really take the Shadow Ball anywhere else, I'm guaranteed to lose this game. I'm going to be able to make this game very, very close, but unfortunately just not close enough. A Sand Tomb is going to put the Tinkaton too low. The Bug Bites are shredding through my health bar, so I'm forced to fire off the Gigaton Hammer, and I'm 4 away. I need to be 6 turns off a move to have a chance at a CMD tie, but I was 8 turns away. I make it as close as I can, but man, the combination of Licky Licky and Feraligatr just core broke this team to smithereens. Speaking of core breakers, I'm going to be leading a Corsola into a Krookodile in the next match. I save switch Shadow Gyarados. I'm answered by Unova's Stunfisk, and this is just going from bad to worse. A Krookodile. At the very least, that is some incredibly cool spice, but here my opponent makes a very massive error. They don't end up firing off a discharge, and instead let me make it to a second Aqua Tail and pressure both of their shields. That is really, really good for me. I'm incredibly happy to get both shields down, because now that Krookodile is about to get absolutely shredded by a Gigaton Hammer. I feel very comfortable tanking all the damage on the Corsola. Corsola is completely walled by the Krookodile. Krookodile is some insane spice for my opponent, so I definitely have to respect it. I fire off Nightshade. Nightshade is going to be taking the knockout, and I'm just looking to pivot into the Tinkaton. My opponent sends in the Krookodile. Honestly, I don't know what Krookodile learns. I think it learns Brick Break, so I will put up the shield. Oh, they're actually on Sand Tomb. They Sand Tomb debuff me, and they're going to pivot in their own Tinkaton. If I can get a Bulldoze debuff, then Gigaton will actually be able to take the knockout. So I fire off Bulldoze. Bulldoze lands. No debuff comes through. And I'm going to let this go because this is only enough for a Bulldoze. I'm really hoping that my switch timer does come up here, and it just doesn't. It was a half second from coming up, and that is pretty bad news for me. They fire off the Bulldoze. I'm going to farm to 100, go for the Gigaton Hammer, but this is still going to fall short of taking the knockout. Bulldoze is going to get them low. Simultaneous switch Corsola into the Krookodile, and if Krookodile has Crunch, I'm definitely getting KO'd. Krookodile goes for a charge attack, but it's a Sand Tomb. It does not take the knockout, and somehow I think we're going to escape here. Nightshade takes the KO. In comes Tinkaton. Tinkaton gets farmed down. Man, I was not expecting to see a Krookodile. Luckily, we're able to escape with the win. But man, honestly, I don't feel like I deserve to win that one. Unfortunately, Corsola cannot catch a break on the lead, as this game is going to be leading into Fearow. I fire off Power Gem. Power Gem pressures the shield, but there's just such a massive pacing advantage for the Fearow that Corsola is always going to get overwhelmed. So I actually send in the Shadow Shiny Gyarados because I want to try and get up energy, and hopefully Gyarados will do well into whatever my opponent has in the back. They're going to be sending in a Quagsire. This is the non-Shadow Quagsire, and the good news for me is my opponent can't make a Stone Edge before I can make my second Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail lands. I go for Aqua Tail number 2, but this is only 6 Mud Shots. They are 1 energy short of that Stone Edge, so that's a very safe no shield, and now I can fire off Aqua Tail number 2. This Aqua Tail easily going to be knocking out the Quagsire, and I should be able to make a move into the Fearow if that's what they decide to send back in. My opponent sends in Aegislash. Uh-oh. This is where things could get a little bit scary. Aegislash very strong into this team as well. I fire off the Aqua Tail. I'm just going to get as much damage as possible into this Pokemon because the Waterfalls are actually doing way more damage than I expected. Aqua Tail lands. Aegislash very, very low. My opponent will fire off energy, and I decide to put up the shield. I want this Waterfall to land on the very low HP Aegislash. They're going to have to pivot out, and when they do, I can fire off my Aqua Tail. So I click the Aqua Tail, but the Aqua Tail doesn't trigger. I clicked the Aqua Tail there after 1 Waterfall. For some reason, it didn't trigger that Aqua Tail, and instead threw a Waterfall, and the charge attack ends up being lost. That's pretty bad news for me. I try and get the farm down. I'm just not able to do so. And now my opponent's able to knock out the Tinkaton. I send in the Corsola. Corsola farms down. Can they make a move on Aegislash? And they do. That one, unfortunately, was a game error, costing us that. We clicked the Aqua Tail. I saw myself in the replay press the Aqua Tail button. It just didn't trigger. And not being able to force that shield, unfortunately, costed me the game. We pick up a terrible lead in the next match, leading Corsola into Licky Licky. I safe switch into Tinkaton, and my opponent responds with the Gourgeist. We are in a very rough spot, but I'm able to get a shield and a debuff with the Bulldoze, and now my opponent's going to have to double shield. Gigaton Hammer is too threatening. They try and call the bait. They just get one shot. Wow, that is just a Tinkaton moment right there, and my opponent is going to resign the match. We move to the next game, Corsola into Tinkaton, and this time I think I'm going to try playing it out a little bit differently. Instead of staying in the matchup, I think I'm just going to let the Gigaton land, and then just try and pivot into my own Tinkaton. Ideally, I want to try and put the Gyarados on the Tinkaton later in the game, because Gyarados, the whole reason I'm running Waterfall on it is due to the Tinkaton matchup. Allegedly, Gyarados should be a pretty good matchup there, although it's so frail that even a resistant Gigaton would still do the vast majority of Gyarados' HP bar. They Gigaton, I Gigaton, they're now on the 6th cycle, which means they're able to outpace. The fact that my opponent is not pivoting out makes me feel that my Tinkaton has quite a lot of play. I'm going to overfarm massively here, anticipating my opponent is going to let this through, trying to call a Bulldoze bait, but they don't. If they're double shielding, I think they're very weak to Tinkaton. So I make kind of an aggressive call, and I just fully sacrifice Corsola with the Power Gem loaded, just to keep the Tinkaton around. Now, I wait down the timer, I bring back in the Tinkaton, and I'll fire off Gigaton Hammer. Gigaton will easily be taking the knockout here, and now my opponent's gonna have to reveal what do they have in the back. Oh, that's a Fearow. Fearow is not going to be a big fan of Gigaton Hammer. So I fire off Gigaton, they survive, I switch into the Gyarados and snipe down with Waterfall. In the back is Galarian Moltres, and this game is over. Moltres will have to fire off energy at the Gyarados, but the combination of the Aqua Tail, the Waterfall pressure is just going to be way too much. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We see a disastrous lead in the next match, Corsola into Hydreigon. I save switch into Tinkaton, and to my absolute shock, my opponent stays in and throws a move. That damage, I needed. I could not have won the game without my opponent taking those 6 Fairy Winds and losing like 60% of their Hydreigon. They end up sending in Tinkaton, and the fact that timers are misaligned means that I need to try and preserve my Tinkaton as much as I possibly can. I should be able to pivot out of this matchup very soon, but my only way of beating the Hydreigon is with this Tinkaton. So I decide to go for the Bulldoze bait, hoping my opponent puts up the shield. They do not, but I get the debuff, and I snipe down with Astonish. My opponent sends in their final Pokemon. Based on typing, I thought it was going to be an Aegislash, but no, it's Doublade. Doublade banks a ton of energy. They send in Hydreigon, but Hydreigon's low enough the Nightshade will actually pressure away a shield. My opponent's going to have to throw, because if they don't, I'm able to make it to a second Nightshade. Hydreigon forced a double shield against Corsola. Not a great turn of events for my opponent. They're forced to throw energy at the Corsola. I can just use Corsola as a meat shield, use Tinkaton as a meat shield, and then Shadow Gyarados is going to be able to clean up against that Doublade in the back, because Doublade is completely walled by Gyarados' typing. So I send in Gyarados. There's a simultaneous switch as my opponent tries to snipe with the Doublade. Doublade goes for the Sacred Sword. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We get the Dream lead in the final match, Corsola into Togekiss. This matchup is so bad for Togekiss that arguably this is its worst meta matchup. They threw on 5, which isn't the greatest charge stack timing. They safe switch into Licky Licky. Licky Licky has been a very meta Pokemon for a very long time. I was absolutely shocked at the amount of Catch Cup Licky Lickys that I saw. This team, as you can tell from the fact that I'm running Corsola plus Gyarados core, is so weak to Licky Licky. I felt like I was kind of at a team comp disadvantage in a lot of games, just because Licky Licky was just so strong into this team, and I kept running into it again and again and again. While Tinkaton can survive 2 Shadow Balls, I'm now very, very close to getting knocked out. I fire off my second Gigaton. This one does connect, and this should allow me to go for a pretty diabolical play. I'm going to go for a 1 shield Astonish farm down with Corsola. This will guarantee that I exit with 100 energy, but look at that. I get 1 turn Bring and Lag, and I don't sneak through my Astonish, and that means that I can no longer get the Astonish down. Licky Licky would survive the final Astonish because I'm missing 1 Astonish worth of damage, and that forces me to throw energy. That is absolutely terrible. The fact that I'm missing an entire Nightshade here because of that 1 turn Bring and Lag may have just lost me this game. I fire off my first Nightshade, my opponent throws on alignment, very poor charge stack timing from them, and that does give me a free Astonish. I'm going to just keep firing off as many Nightshades as I can possibly get to, trying to get my opponent lower and lower. This Nightshade will put them low. Maybe there's a chance that this is Waterfall downrange for the Shadow Gyarados. If it is, then I can still somehow win this game. I send in the Gyarados, Waterfall shredding, they pivot out into Togekiss, but they're so far behind in terms of energy. Their only way to win this game is to make a move on the Stunfisk, and the Stunfisk is not going to survive the next waterfall. They fire off energy, I put up the shield, but I can always outpace and make the Aqua Tail. Now my opponent just has to hope that Stunfisk has a charge attack loaded. If it doesn't, this game is over. In comes Stunfisk, Waterfall takes the knockout, and despite that one-turn bring-in lag making it very, very tough in that mid-game, we're able to fight back and get the win. Even if the IVs aren't the greatest, I'm very happy to have a Shadow Shiny Gyarados. I think that I'm going to have this Shadow Shiny Gyarados as my Waterfall Gyarados and keep my original high rank one as Dragon Breath. Dragon Breath is typically going to be the moveset to go for in the Open Grade League, but in this meta with a lot of Tinkaton, I felt that having some fast move pressure in a Tinkaton could be a little bit nice, and that's why I decided to go for Waterfall. Overall, would I recommend this team for the Catch Cup? I think absolutely not. I don't know if I'd recommend any team for the Catch Cup. It's kind of just running what you have and hoping for the best. As opposed to a lot of leagues that have a set meta that you can try and target, the Catch Cup doesn't really have a set meta. It's people just running what they have, so you're not going to see a lot of consistency across teams, except maybe the fact that there's probably going to be a decent amount of Tinkaton. Catch Cup is usually one of my less favorite metas, and the fact that they have Catch Cup and Masters together in a singular rotation, I think is a pretty big miss from the development team. Catch Cup, I think, is fine if it's paired with all three leagues, so that way people are not forced into running Catch Cup. But Catch Cup is really just, did you get lucky and catch Metamon throughout the course of the season, or are you willing to build like a third Licky or fourth Unova Stunfisk? And I'm really not a massive fan of a meta that incentivizes players to just kind of waste resources to have to rebuild mons that they already had. I think this will probably be my final video on Catch Cup for this week, and I'll probably lean more towards Master League or Preview Cup. Preview Cup, I felt like at the start it was very promising. I've been progressively more frustrated the more that I played Preview Cup, to be honest. I feel like the Cup was there to kind of get players' feedback and try and improve it, and I feel like somehow it's gotten worse, and I don't know how it's gotten worse. But let me know down in the comments if you've been playing Preview Cup and have had a similar issue. But I feel like almost while playing the Preview Cup, I don't know what it is about the animations, but they can almost like make players like nauseous. I don't know what about the animations is so different in the Preview Cup, but I know it's a work in progress and we have to be patient. But man, I would like to see some progress pretty soon because it seems like it's in a very rough spot right now. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please do help support the channel by leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated. Thank you guys so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.